Human attraction has deep evolutionary roots. In the harsh environments of our distant ancestors, choosing a mate wasn't just about romance. It was about survival and reproduction. Traits that helped a man thrive in dangerous conditions could be very appealing. High-risk, daring behaviors were often signals of strong genes, health, and bravery. In evolutionary terms, a man who takes risks and survives is likely advertising his physical prowess or genetic fitness. Researchers note that risk-taking serves as a signaling function, showcasing one's intrinsic quality to potential mates. A man who could confidently face down a wild animal or rival tribe without flinching must have something going for him: strength, courage, and leadership qualities. These are traits a prehistoric woman might have wanted in her children. Dominance and confidence also played a key role. In many animal species, including humans, females evolved to prefer mates who demonstrate social dominance or higher status because such males could secure resources and offer protection. A confident, dominant male in an ancestral tribe might have been better at defending the family, hunting for food, and keeping rivals at bay. In fact, anthropologists observing hunter-gatherer societies have found that the most successful and often risk-taking hunters tend to achieve higher social prestige and have more mating opportunities. For example, among groups like the Ashur-Kung, men who bring home the bacon, big game from risky hunts, often end up with more offspring. This suggests that our female ancestors who chose brave, bold hunters were rewarded with more surviving children, passing on those risk-friendly genes. There's even an idea in evolutionary biology known as the sexy son hypothesis. It proposes that a woman might benefit by choosing an attractive but high-risk man if it means her sons will inherit their father's bold qualities, giving them an edge in their own mating success. In other words, mating with a charming rebel could produce sons who are also charming rebels, perpetuating a lineage of success with women. While the bad boy might not stick around to help raise kids, the genetic payoff in terms of potentially attractive offspring could, in theory, outweigh that cost in certain environments. Let's break down the specific traits often associated with bad boys and why evolution might favor them. Physical risk-taking, reckless or adventurous behavior, think of daring hunts, fights, or exploration, was a double-edged sword. It could get a man killed, but if he succeeded, it signaled remarkable skill or vigor. Surviving risky feats sent a strong message: I'm tough, fast, and smart enough to handle danger. Scientific studies confirm that women tend to find male risk-takers more attractive in short-term mating contexts. Choosing a risk-prone mate could have given offspring genes for boldness or strength. One recent cross-cultural study of over 1,300 women found that men who engage in physical risk-taking are judged as more attractive for brief flings than for long-term relationships. This makes sense. Historically, a short, passionate encounter with a brave hunter could yield high-quality genes, even if he wasn't the safest long-term dad. Confidence and dominance. The classic bad boy exudes confidence and often dominates social situations. Evolutionary psychologists note that dominance can be alluring because it suggests an ability to compete and win in life's challenges. A dominant man might have better access to resources and mates. Think of alpha male figures in history, tribal leaders or warriors who had multiple wives or high reproductive success. Psychologists have observed that across cultures, women value signs of status and assertiveness in mates, especially when considering the man's potential to provide or protect. Dominance in a mate could mean security for a woman and her children when danger lurked behind every tree. Then there's emotional volatility, the roller coaster. This trait is tricky. Moodiness or impulsivity can be harmful, but in ancestral contexts, it might also flag a fierce protector. A quick-to-anger man could deter threats and rivals. The passionate highs and lows of a volatile personality might also be interpreted as deep emotional investment or excitement by our evolved psychology. In modern terms, some women describe the emotional roller coaster of being with a volatile bad boy as addictive. Evolutionarily, being unpredictable and aggressive could have kept enemies guessing. However, it's a risky trait. It can secure short-term victories, but might destabilize long-term cooperation. These traits often cluster together in what psychologists call the Dark Triad of personality: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. These dark traits correspond to self-confidence, strategic manipulation, and thrill-seeking impulsivity, all hallmark qualities of the classic bad boy. Research has shown that men who score high in Dark Triad traits tend to prefer short-term flings and actually report more sexual partners on average. In other words, a touch of evil can bring fitness benefits. These guys succeed, at least in passing on their genes, more often than their nice guy peers. One study published in the journal Personality and Individual Differences demonstrated that the Dark Triad male personality is indeed attractive to women in the context of brief, romantic encounters. It's as if some women's instincts respond to the cocky, risk-taking charm, even when logic says he's trouble. Fictional characters like James Bond epitomize this. He's dangerous, dominant, and irresistible, anecdotally illustrating what the data bear out scientifically. So, in our ancestral past, courting a bad boy type could mean winning the genetic lottery. Women who mated with high testosterone, risk-taking men might gain healthy, survive-at-all-costs offspring. But evolution isn't static, and what worked back then might not work so well now. Fast forward to today's world. Many of the dangers that once loomed large have faded. Now cooperation, stability, and long-term planning are more crucial than brute strength or bravado. A lone wolf warrior might have thrived in the Stone Age, but today, an impulsive rule breaker might end up unemployed or in jail. Not exactly great provider material. Traits that once signaled fitness can now conflict with what's needed for a successful long-term partnership. Modern women still carry the ancient psychology of attraction, but they operate in a different environment. High-risk behavior today, reckless driving, casual violence, extreme stunts, often isn't beneficial for family well-being. Research shows that women's preferences adapt to this context. Women rate risk-taking men as less desirable for long-term relationships. A 2023 international study found that while bold risk-takers might be sexy for a fling, women looking for a husband and father for their children favor men who are cautious and reliable. This reflects a rational strategy. In modern environments, a stable good guy who is trustworthy and will invest in offspring is a safer bet than a thrill-seeking rebel. Female choice has likely evolved to be flexible. If a trait like pure dominance doesn't translate to real benefits, say, The dominant guy isn't actually a good protector or provider in modern terms. Women won't universally prefer it. A classic paper in Trends in Ecology and Evolution noted that male dominance doesn't always equate to better genes or better parenting. Sometimes the costs of a dominant mate outweigh the benefits. If a domineering man is likely to be aggressive or unfaithful, a woman may do better with a less dominant but more cooperative male. In modern contexts, traits like kindness, emotional stability, and willingness to share responsibilities can be more valuable than machismo. Think of everyday scenarios. A man who is impulsive and aggressive might get into fights or drive dangerously. A man who is steady and conscientious can provide consistent support. It's no wonder that surveys of women's ideal long-term partners emphasize dependability, emotional stability, and kindness. Traits that are the opposite of the stereotypical bad boy. We also see this shift reflected culturally. The phrase "nice guys finish last" isn't a scientific law, but a tongue-in-cheek observation that in short-term dating, flashy confidence can outshine quiet reliability. Yet when it comes to marriage and parenting, many women prioritize the so-called nice guys. The initial excitement of a bad boy fades if he can't hold down a job or repeatedly breaks trust. In evolutionary terms, the environment changed. We no longer need a warrior to fend off lions at the cave entrance. We need a partner who can help with the mortgage and child care. Scientific studies on mate preferences show that altruism, selfless helping behavior, is highly attractive, especially for long-term mates. Women consistently rank kindness and altruism as top desirable traits in cross-cultural surveys. One study even found that women valued altruism in a man more than physical attractiveness when considering long-term relationships. Altruism is essentially the antithesis of the selfish bad boy. It signals a willingness to share and invest in others. Evolutionarily, altruistic men may have been better co-parents, so modern women are often drawn to men who show generosity and empathy. We should also acknowledge that not all women prefer bad boys. Women's preferences are diverse and context-dependent. Age, personal values, culture, and life stage all influence what traits are attractive. Many women genuinely have no interest in bad boys at all, putting a premium on kindness, intellect, or humor from the start. Others might go through a bad boy phase in youth and later seek a more stable partner. Evolutionary psychologists talk about the dual mating strategy hypothesis to explain how conflicting preferences can coexist. Women historically faced a trade-off. The mate with the best genes might not be the mate who's most willing to stick around and invest in children. The hypothesis suggests women evolved to balance two overlapping strategies: a short-term strategy focusing on obtaining good genes, being drawn to men who are sexually attractive, physically fit, confident, and dominant, even if they're high risk or less willing to commit, and a long-term strategy focusing on obtaining a reliable provider and protector, seeking men who are stable, generous, and willing to invest resources and care in her and the kids. These strategies can be at odds. The bold, wild men may excel in passing on genes, but the gentle, reliable men excel in raising families. Human mating psychology may have evolved to weigh these trade-offs flexibly. A woman in a safe environment with plenty of support may afford to take a chance on a high-risk bad boy for his genes. A woman in a harsh or uncertain environment might prioritize a cautious good guy who will reliably provide. Some studies have found that even a single woman's preferences can shift with circumstances. When fertile, some women's attraction to masculine, dominant cues rises. At other times of the cycle, or in decisions about long-term mates, preferences swing toward more nurturing, kind men. Not all women are equally drawn to high-risk partners. Women who scored high on risk-taking themselves were more attracted to risk-prone men, like PSYCH like. Women with more conservative or risk-averse personalities might find bad boys simply stressful. Cultural background matters too. If a culture romanticizes the rebel archetype, we might see more attraction to it. Conversely, cultures that emphasize cooperation and community might socialize women to avoid the lone wolf type. Let's bust the myth that this is all women. It's not. Humans are wonderfully varied. Some women have zero tolerance for Dark Triad behavior and can spot an unreliable guy a mile away. Others might fall for a charming bad boy, only to learn from heartbreak that those traits aren't conducive to a happy relationship. And many women do find nice traits incredibly attractive from the get-go. A witty, caring, emotionally intelligent man can be just as irresistible as a swaggering rogue. In fact, for many, far more so. In closing, the fascination with bad boys isn't just a media cliché. It has academic backing in evolutionary psychology. Traits like risk-taking, dominance, and confidence can act as signals of genetic quality, which helped our ancestors survive and reproduce in high-risk environments. This helps explain why a dangerous edge can spark an instinctual attraction, a thrill that some women describe when they meet a confident rule breaker. However, evolution is not a one-way street. Just as it favored those attractions, it also favored careful consideration of context. Our species benefited not only from fearless genes, but from cooperation, devotion, and long-term thinking. Modern society rewards the latter more than ever. Today, an ideal partner is often one who can navigate complex social worlds, show up to parent-teacher conferences, and be a dependable teammate in life. Women's attraction to bad boys can be seen as part of a broader, nuanced mating strategy, a pull between the allure of good genes and the practical need for a good partner. Scientific studies reinforce this duality. Yes, a touch of bad can be alluring in the short run, but altruism, kindness, and stability win out for long-term love. And many women wisely prioritize those stable qualities from the start. So next time you hear someone say, "I know he's no good for me, but I can't help being drawn to him," you'll understand that there are ancient forces at play behind that feeling. It's not that women truly want trouble. Rather, a part of our evolutionary history finds the signal of a risk-taker compelling, at least under certain conditions. But attraction is not destiny. Understanding the science can empower people to recognize why they feel that pull and to make conscious choices about what and who is truly best for them in the long run.